In the wake of the tragic passing of actor Paul Walker, executives at Universal and producers Vin Diesel and Neil Moritz have been frantically trying to decide how to proceed with their Fast and Furious 7 movie, which is already more than halfway done filming. According to a report from The Wrap this morning, the studio and producers are now actually considering scrapping the film as it is and starting over with either Walker's character written out or getting a new actor to play the role of Brian. John, what would you think about Fast and the Furious 7 starting over from scratch?
You know, the other day we talked about where can Fast and Furious go from here, and I listed off 3 options that they have, and this wasn't one of the options. Not because I don't think it's a valid option, but simply because I never dreamed in a million years Universal would consider, being already halfway done filming, scrapping everything they've got, rework the script, and start again. And if that's what they're doing, I'm okay with it, actually. I'm totally okay with it. Like, logistically, it makes life a lot simpler. Despite the fact they have to start over again, than, say, trying to patchwork and makeshift a very awkward departure of the Paul Walker character out of the film, because it's not like they were 90% done filming. They just had to finish his last couple of scenes,
right.
All that kind of stuff. Now, once again, then you got 2 options. Do you just not have him there, or do you replace him with another actor? I will still firmly stand on the ground that you replace him with another actor. You absolutely replace him with another actor. You know, I mentioned this the other day, but it bears repeating. There are some people who say, out of respect for Paul Walker, you don't replace him. That's bullcrap. That is absolute stupidity and nonsense. Because if you're a guy like Paul Walker who poured your heart, passion, mind, soul, strength, everything into that character and then that role, you honor him by making it the best Fast and Furious ever. If there was some guy who was an architect, right, and he had this dream of building this 80-story skyscraper, and when it was 60 stories tall, he passed away. Do you think he wants then everybody else to go, well, out of respect for him, we're just going to stop it at 60 stories? No, if you honor him, you take that building all the way to where it was supposed to go, on the shoulders of what he built. And I think with Paul Walker, look, Fast and the Furious, as important as The Rock has become, Fast and the Furious is about Dom and Brian. That's what this franchise is about. It's about Dom and Brian. And if they've been planning to take this to Fast and the Furious 9 and 10 with Dom and Brian, then to honor Paul Walker, you take it to 9 or 10 with Dom and Brian. Now, some people will say, well, you know, audiences won't be able to deal with it. Like if you suddenly replace Paul Walker with, say, a Taylor Kitsch, for example, right? Who I think is a pretty darn good actor. People are saying, oh, people, you know, fans just, it'll disrupt us too much. We're not going to. Really? Harry Potter. Harry Potter. Sir Richard Harris is playing Dumbledore, a key, major, significant character in the Harry Potter franchise, and he sadly passes away in between films. Does Harry Potter and Warner Brothers then go back and write Dumbledore out of the future Harry Potter films? No, they recast him, and guess what happened? Did the Harry Potter fan base tremble and fall apart because we can't wrap our minds around this? There's another actor playing Dumbledore. No, a new actor came in, and it was just fine. It worked out totally fine. They switch James Bonds. They switch characters all the time. It's okay. And this whole idea that movie audiences are so mentally fragile that we can't handle the idea that another actor comes in. Like I said, it would be different if this was like a Crow situation, right? Where they were nearly done the film. They were almost at the finish line. That's different. Then I completely, you brought up that point, I think, the other day, and I completely agree with you 100% on that. But in a situation like this, honor Paul Walker by seeing Dom and Brian's story through to where they wanted to go, build on the shoulders of what he spent so much of his life establishing, get a new actor in there. Audiences are mentally strong enough to handle it. Don't worry. I think that's what you do. Now, if they want to go in another direction and say, the narrative of Fast and the Furious 6 makes sense if they want to say, if Universal wants to say that now that Brian is with his wife, Dom's sister, and they have a baby now, that they decide to move to another country and get out of that life, narrative-wise, that makes sense. And they have some options there to do that, and I'm totally cool if they do that as well, if that's what they choose. But I think if they decide to go with another actor to build on what Paul Walker spent so much of his professional career building, then I think that's the way you do it, and that's the way you go. But anyway, I've rambled on about this long enough. Aaron, how do you see this?
I think it's interesting that Universal is willing to start from the beginning on a project like this. I mean,
Yeah.
these movies are not cheap to make. So I actually really respect the idea that they're willing to go back and change the storyline or make some adjustments due to this terrible situation that happened. But I'm also really interested in what's going to happen, because when they announced the release date of this movie at CinemaCon, they basically said that this movie was very tied in to the 6th installment. So they really wanted to kind of get right on the heels of the other one,
Yeah.
release it as soon as possible. So I'm a little bit
June,
worried about
right? June or
that.
July it was supposed to come out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, a year later. So I'm a little bit concerned about that, and I wonder how they're going to address those storylines that they really wanted to wrap up in the 7th installment. So I'm kind of unsure about how they're going to address all this, but I respect the fact they're willing to start from scratch.
Schnapp?
Yeah, I mean, whether or not they were halfway through shooting, we don't know how much of Paul Walker's parts were halfway through. I mean, he might have only shot in 3% of his role in Fast and the Furious.
Yeah,
And
we
they
just
could have
don't know.
been key scenes where it's like, oh, wait. So, I mean, we don't know. So, I mean, there's also all the things that happen in post-production. It's called looping. I mean, you're shooting shots of all these actors. You have to get them back in the studio to actually re-record their dialogue so you as an audience member could hear it over the car noise and all the...
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a normal thing that happens. With Heath Ledger, they had gotten all of his looping done. I mean, there's certain things like that when actors die in the middle of shooting a movie or even after it's done shooting, there's all these aspects to it that the post-production has to handle. So, I mean, just thinking about it strictly from a filmic sense, yeah, it makes sense to reshoot what they shot. They're already in it for spending money. I mean, that's a given. They've been shooting for 3 months now.
Something like that.
I mean, it's probably maybe 20 million. It's not going to be like, oh, it's going to cost $100 million to reshoot
Well, I think
those.
insurance. I think the report claims that insurance will cover whatever the studio has to eat to scrap it and restart. The big loss for the studio, though, as you were pointing out, is their release date
Time.
that they really wanted. They wanted that very rushed release date, and so it may not cost them financially to start over again, but it will cost them that release date, absolutely, if they have to rework the script and start the story from scratch.
I wonder, yeah, I mean, well, that then calls into are they going to just recast and reshoot?
Well, that's
Because
the
then
question, right?
That's a lot easier to make that release date if it's strictly like we're reshooting. And this happens a lot in production. Say you shot a scene and then something happened, you have to reshoot it. It's 4 times easier to reshoot something because you've already done all the work.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
already put everything together to make that scene happen. Now you're just redoing it.
You just gotta go back
Same
and
thing
do
with
it.
editing. Say, hey, you've got to re-edit something. There's redoing something. If you lose an edit, sometimes your computer will crash. You have to re-put something together. You do it like what took 6-7 hours of logistically thinking through something. You can put it together in 30 minutes.
And we should
So-
point out here that while we're talking about Universal's options of either starting from scratch without the Brian character at all, or starting from scratch with a recast Brian character, we should specify once again, Universal hasn't decided to start over
Right.
again. They are simply, this is an option they are considering at the moment, and I just think it is one that could probably work. All right.
If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to AMC Movie News on YouTube. It's free and a great way to stay updated with all the latest movie news and check out our daily show, AMC Movie Talk. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter to stay in the loop for our special prizes, giveaways, and contests.